Today's date, August 3rd. We got myself, Ruben Abraham, and
Kiefer Kroll from Elmhurst. Came here today to be in Ruben's podcast, experiment with whatever is happening, computer ethics. I don't even know.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna show him a video on facial recognition, facial motion recognition, and see his reaction to that. And then we're gonna go on a couple topics that we learned throughout the class. And I just wanted to get an outside point of view since he didn't take the class with us, but I want to get an outside point of view on ethics in computer science. Just gotta wait to click out of this shit.
What the heck is this?
Oh, but first off, I forgot to ask. Do I have your consent to record for this?
You have my consent.
Podcast video purpose. All right, good. You're good to go. All right, so just focus on the screen.
3, 2, 1. Tech quiz. What do Facebook, Apple, and Google all have in common? Yes, they are all good companies who are doing the best things. But there's another fact that's even more exciting. And the best way to reveal it is to reveal a fact about you. You like dogs. Surprise! We've been watching you back. Introducing facial emotion recognition, a new kind of artificial intelligence that decides how you feel just by looking at your face. It's already in the apps, devices, and websites you use every day, including this one you're using right now. And it's so fast and invisible, you don't even notice that it's learning all kinds of interesting things about you. Like, you clearly prefer women. Yay! Wow! Isn't this tech fun? It's like an expert you never asked for that decides what you like, what you want, and most importantly, what you deserve. And the secret to how it got so smart is that it doesn't even see you as a human being. Celebration! Welcome to your new life as an input. A group of numbers destined for a machine learning-based image processing algorithm. Emotion recognition AI starts by scanning your selfie to find your face. Face detection algorithms learn to find faces by memorizing the patterns of thousands of tiny face pictures. Most are trained using a free database of celebrities from the year 2007. Once the AI decides you have a face, it can try to guess the locations of individual parts. So every time you see this, the AI sees this. These are the shapes or landmarks of your face. And if you want to know another fun secret, yours are secretly being recorded all the time. Why? Well, emotion recognition AI works by recognizing the shapes of common facial expressions. So when you smile, frown, or barely react at all, the AI measures your face and scores your feelings accordingly. And by analyzing your face as you scroll through content, tech companies can decide your opinions for you about videos, news, or even your friends. All the time, everywhere. Wow, what a convenient feature. But wait, maybe you're wondering, do tech companies have to keep their decisions about me confidential? Well, we're excited to tell you the answer is no. Yay! They carefully design their terms of service to save you the trouble of consenting to any of this. So they can generously share all their decisions about you with advertisers, brands, and curious political groups who'd probably like to know you definitely prefer black people. Wow! This is a very fun time. Just imagine the possibilities. Dating apps can decide what profiles you see. Social networks can decide what news stories you read. And super PACs can decide what candidates you prefer. All without the inconvenience of asking your permission or giving you a choice. Imagine a magical world where apps track your location with your phone's GPS to sell your reactions to the government, your employer, or even the police.
No.
And if that just sounds like something from the future, well, don't worry. It isn't. It's actually Snapchat's secret plan to use facial emotion recognition right now. They quietly filed this patent revealing it, which was approved by the government in 2018. This is you. And this is where they sell their decisions about you. These are the emotions they hope you'll feel. They even drew pictures of you and your friends, attending concerts, parades, and political rallies, while their algorithms extract your feelings and sell them instantly to buyers around the world. And if you don't use Snapchat, don't worry. Facebook has plans for emotion recognition too. So does Apple, Disney, 20th Century Fox, Kellogg's Corn Flakes, your local pizzeria, and the person interviewing you for your next job. Yay! And in the future, well, that part's a bit over your head. We decided that by combining all your reactions so far. Because the most exciting part of this amazing new tech is the more it sees your face, the more decisions it can make about your life. And for such an interesting person like you, who's probably not poor, probably not mentally ill, and clearly narcissistic, we're sure it's gonna work out great. So next time you open up your favorite app, device, or website and point your camera at your face, say hello to facial emotion recognition AI. The algorithms can't wait to meet you.
After seeing that documentary, the interactive documentary, what was your initial reaction to it?
I thought it was pretty cool, just to see how technology has grown, with, advancements in the phones, the computers, the jobs have changed because of this technology. But I think it's cool that, a computer, I don't know the algorithm, but they could recognize your face, like you're happy, sad. It's almost kind of scary, but at the same time, it's kind of cool. But I have to do more research about it. But like, I have the iPhone, 11, and like, I don't even need to put a password in to unlock my phone. I could literally hold up my face and it's easy.
Yeah, you got that Face ID.
Face ID. So like, I could see it, being a good thing, like maybe, advancement of the face recognition. It could go into houses instead of, using a key to unlock your door. It could be your face. They see your face, you could go in, recognize you, things like that. So I think it's interesting idea. And, like I said, I don't know much about it. I don't know like the whole rules, ethics behind it, like this class, but yeah, I just want to learn more about it.
Yeah, you mentioned something very interesting about how like we could use faces to like open doors and stuff. And there was actually a case study, or not a study, but it was actual documentary on Netflix. If you watched it, called Coded Bias. They mentioned places in New York, like people would hold, or people who have housing districts, they would install security systems where like they would just walk up to the door, and then if they lived at that place, then they could get in because it knows their face.
Yeah.
Another problem they faced, it was easier to pick up white people's faces than it was darker skinned people's faces. And so that was a big issue there. But also in regards to that, what did you feel about the company selling your data without really your permission?
I'm always about permission. Every time you do contracts or your damn signature, like everything has to be permission based. Like they can't just do, like if I did something without your, consent, permission, like kind of almost violates your, your decision making. Instead of you taking control, choosing what you want for yourself, they're taking control of you. And that's not a good thing, because when you become, always say manipulative, or like they're the manipulator influencing how you live, then like they're just taking control of your lives, and that's not good. This is not what this country was raised on.
Yeah. And I also remember, I don't know if you remember, but in the documentary, they're also talking about companies making decisions for you. So it's like, if you saw, I don't know if you saw it, but they're like, oh, you don't like dogs, or you like dogs. And so something that arises from that issue is they start to sell the information to like marketing companies, and then those companies will start to make advertisements just based on you. So something called target advertising comes up out of that. And so that's when, like, and then say you did a Google search for like gym equipment or something like that. So you're going through YouTube, and the next advertisement that pops up is an advertisement for gym equipment at some store. So how do you feel about that? When it's like you search something on Google, and then the advertisement that pops up is exactly what you searched on Google.
No, that's actually pretty cool that you're talking about that, because I've noticed that when you're on YouTube or searching, like, I think YouTube has that technology where you could say something a lot of times, like, say Wendy's, let's go to Wendy's. It'll pick up on that, and it will give me. I noticed that before you click a video or you click on a video, the ad will be Wendy's. I think. I mean, it's just an interesting way of advertising. Like, like it used to be just billboards and TV. Now, since the phones, iPhones, Androids, like now they're trying to do new ways just to influence you to buy certain products. If you search something, so many mechanic parts or like cars, and you're gonna see a lot of ads for like O'Reilly or AutoZone.
Yeah,
like,
I get that a lot. Yeah. There was a case I remember from the class. One of the guys mentioned a girl that was in her high school age. She was like 14 or something, and she searched on Target's website, like a pregnancy test. And so then somehow she started seeing advertisements for like pregnancy tests, or if you're pregnant and all this stuff. And so what was crazy is Target knew she was pregnant before the girl and the family found out. The Target advertising breaches security in a sense, because like that's personal information. So like, what's your opinion on them taking like personal information from you doing like the Google search or something like that?
Well, personal information, when I think about personal, I think of Social Security, very important things. But that's more, that case is more of a, I don't know how to call it, like she didn't want people knowing that she could be pregnant. I don't know, it's kind of like subjective feelings, like, but if it crosses the line, let's say it gets to like, I don't know how to like make an example of it. Like, I could see it being a good thing, or catching robberies or something, or people buying looking up things that's going to cause harm to other people. I could see that being a good thing, but as long as not too much information. I mean, the pregnancy thing, it's hard, like as long as it's not crossing the line of identifying who you are to a degree, where you live.
I mean, I just think personal information should be kept personal.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, it could be used for good things, like identifying criminals and stuff like that. And I remember when I was watching that documentary on Netflix, Coded Bias, in parts of I think England or somewhere, police were using like actual like cameras on the street to identify people walking past it, and they would create these profiles based on their face and whatever match they had in their database or whatever. But then that database, they would like categorize them based off their risk. But like the way they were categorizing them wasn't right, because it would look up stuff like not just their search history, but like their purchases and all this stuff. And then based off that, the officers would get out of the car and like do like a whole like stop and frisk. It did work for a while, but then they found out that it had like some bias towards like a certain group of people, say
people
like,
of color.
Yeah, exactly. People of color. And so there's a lot of things that happens with this software. Whatever data it's been given, it outputs a different, it doesn't output a different thing, but it just amplifies it, And so that's one thing that I learned from this class, is that like AI, or it's cool to use, and like it's more efficient, but the efficiency comes at a cost, And the cost is it worth like risking information or data breaches and stuff like that, or is it worth efficiency? And so when it comes to like efficiency versus not efficient? Like, do you think efficiency should be the main priority, or do you think privacy and doing things the right way, even if they take longer, should be the priority?
That's a good question. Well, the problem is, we're living, as we see nowadays, technology is growing. Even, I'm a law enforcement major. Like we talk about how technology, like if you look at the Constitution, the forefathers who wrote that Constitution didn't know, we're never going to know that technology was going to be what it is today. Problems with cell phones, recording people, audio, like things like that. And I'm more with privacy. Efficiency, I'm really sure about that, but
There has to be like a balance.
there has to be a balance. I mean, like, as like a Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. People holding this, advanced, AI, like, don't abuse that power to do whatever. There's got to be a line to not cross when dealing with people's privacy, interests, information. And that's the scary part about today. As we see, there's cameras everywhere. The face recognition, people could be identified just like that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point you bring up there. But like something we did mention in the class was like there was another case. They would have this AI program, but they would use it for people who were trying to get like a loan or something like that from a bank. The AI program would create this profile based off of like recent purchases, the bank statements, things they Google online, and something like unnecessary data. They would also like categorize them based off like, if they're high risk or if they're low risk. And like the other thing is creating that high risk and low risk using irrelevant data. It was just hard for people to get a loan that way. And so for like processes like that, they should have what we discussed in classes. They should have a limit to like what kind of data they have access to. Another category of data they were getting was what kind of drugs are you buying at the drugstore. Right. People these days have a lot of access to information that they shouldn't have access to. I mean, unless they absolutely need it. Like say, a bank needs your credit history, a bank needs your recent purchases, a bank needs, your financial stability. Do you have a job for the past year? They need that information. But when people get access to information that they don't necessarily need, say you were in their place, what were some steps that you would want them to take?
I mean, I'm a believer in, especially for, trying to be a cop is, don't go after irrelevant, not vital information. Because when you stray from the important information, then you're just gonna, like you don't need to know other information about this person. Then it could create bias. It could, be prejudice. They shouldn't be reaching out, finding more, like you said, like, what drugs were you buying at the drugstore? Like, just gotta stick to what their job is, and like look at the credit card history, see like recent employment, like those are the important things. If they start reaching out, to territory they don't need to go into, like they shouldn't do it. Like there's no reason to. Like,
I mean, this was a while ago, but it was an article from The Guardian. It was about detecting potential terrorists by their facial expression and behavior in, like the airport, like TSA. So the program came out in 2007, and of course it had problems because it started having that bias, and that bias, it became racial profiling at that point. And so they decided to disband the program and then create an industry with our like devices or something like that. Okay, and the last thing we gotta discuss is who should be held responsible for stuff like this. Say another big example of companies taking data without consent and stuff like that was Facebook. It was a place to have a voice. In that documentary, they said that when Facebook started off, he never thought that it would grow to like what it is now. And they didn't have enough staff to monitor like the content and make sure everybody was obeying the guidelines. It ended up influencing like political elections across the world. There was a whole like rebellion in Egypt. Like one guy amassed, so many followers saying we gotta overthrow this dictator. And they had a whole political movement just through Facebook by setting up an event. Facebook did have, it gave power to people who didn't have power. Who should be held responsible? Facebook gave the person that didn't have a voice. But once he got that voice, other people decided, oh, I have a voice now too. And they took down the guy that created the movement.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think should be responsible? Should it just be Mark Zuckerberg, or should it be the people like using the software?
I think it's both parties. If I'm being honest. I mean, like you said, Facebook does give, if you think about it, power to people. Like I remember back in 2019, everybody wanted to charge Area 51. If you look on Facebook, there was people setting up events. These platforms, it's not just Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. There's a whole bunch of, parties out there that people use, for their own benefit. And I think both, it's like, what do you do with that, with all that, power? Do you use it, for your own, benefit, for, a good cause, like, getting rid of a dictator, protesting, Black Lives Matter, like all that, like, Facebook, like those, providers, they need to, have strict regulations, rules, and the people that are, that use it need to be, hold themselves accountable. I believe that both parties need to be, responsible, for their own content.
I think that people who post, whatever they post, it's on there, it's on there forever. It's never going to, even if they delete it, it's always going to be on there. So you should always be mindful of what you post. You should be mindful of the people it's going to affect, the moderators, the people at the companies, they can't see everything.
Right. Yeah.
It's been a common theme throughout this whole class that companies make something to start off good. The people find a way to abuse what they created for good. Like had a good intention. They always find a way to give it bad intentions or hurt somebody out of it. And it's never going to change, I think. But I think we could always continue to improve whatever software we use for the right intention it was intended to. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to say?
My final thoughts is, whatever the future takes us with this technology, like us two and, the rest of the class, like we're holding that, technology, like, down the line, we're going to be the influencers, and we just got to be careful with it, and when there's unethical, when companies do take those risks and reveal too much information or, go out of bounds, like we need to like have a voice and, report, create a movement, like, I don't know what's in store, with the whole technology. It's crazy, the facial AI, like that to me, is just unbelievable technology. Now they're saying there is like going to be, a hotel in outer space 2027. Like that's how crazy this technology is going. Like I'm curious to see, especially this class you're in, how it's going to be different down the road, and let's say 2050, see how technology is going to be evolving and see if it's going to be for better or for worse. And I really hope it's not for worse, because if that happens, then there's going to be a lot of chaos, people arguing. And
yeah, taking this class, I learned a lot of things that I would never have thought about before. Like I never thought, when I opened up Snapchat and saw the facial filter, I never thought that it was just something reading my face and my expression at the time. I just thought it was something they designed to like put on top of your face. And I never, I never thought that the power of social media could have a huge influence on what we consume, like what we choose to buy, what we choose to use, how we speak about things. And so the power of social media is huge, and I think it's only going to keep getting bigger, and we're going to continue to have problems. But even with those problems, they don't outweigh the positives, is what I think. And if we continue to have this discussion about what's ethical and what we should do to maintain this code of ethics that we already have, and continue to build upon it, then we should be fine. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in today to the podcast. You know, it's something out of my bedroom. You know, if you see the green walls, I could probably add like a background in or something. But you know, I enjoyed taking this class with you guys, and I enjoyed participating in the discussions with you guys. You know, professor was awesome. Just can't wait to see what you guys have in store for the final project as well. So thank you guys and take care. Signing out.
What the?
I just want to thank my guest Kiefer Kroll for coming on and participating in this podcast with me. You have anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, I like being in these like experiments, you know, or anything, talk shows, you know, like, for anything. It's just cool to see, you know, my take on things and your take on things, you know, discussions. You know, that's what school is for. It's not just about learning and getting a degree, you know, it's about interacting with people, you know, getting ideas, you know, innovate ideas. Like that's all learning is.
Definitely. So big thanks to Kiefer, big thanks to this class. And you know, we got many more things coming. So it's 2022, it's coming around the corner. We got things to do. Yeah.
And this podcast is brought to you by Gatorade.
I got one right here too. Shit.